It started pretty normal, nothing weird about it at first. His name was Jason. We met through a mutual friend's online group, not even a dating app, just a space where people talked about random stuff. He was quiet in the group, only replying to certain topics, but whenever I posted, he'd always comment something thoughtful. That's how we started talking one-on-one. He said he was shy, not good at small talk. I liked that about him. He wasn't loud or attention-seeking. He said he worked in logistics and didn't really have time for much else. Our conversations were deep from the beginning. We talked about life, things that scared us, things that made us happy. It wasn't flirtatious at first, it just felt real, like he actually listened. He didn't use social media much, and when he did, his profile was private. The only photo I'd seen was one of him standing next to a car in what looked like a military base. He said he didn't like taking pictures. Said he had trust issues because of things that happened in his past. That seemed fair enough. I didn't push it. Weeks turned into months. We talked every day. Morning texts, calls at night. He told me about growing up in a strict family, about wanting to travel but never getting the chance. He was easy to talk to, the kind of person who made silence feel comfortable instead of awkward. He said he was deployed overseas for a while, that he didn't get much free time but always made sure to message me when he could. He made it sound hard but honest. He never asked for anything, not money or favors, just attention, conversation, time. I trusted him. After a few months, I started feeling like I knew him better than anyone else. He'd talk about coming back home soon and how we'd finally meet. I believed every word. Then one day he said he'd be back in town for a week and wanted to see me. I agreed right away. We planned to meet at a quiet diner halfway between our cities. I was nervous, excited all at once. I'd spent months imagining what it would be like to finally see him in person. When I got there, I texted him that I was outside. He said he was coming. I waited, staring at every person who walked through the door. Then I saw someone approaching, only it wasn't who I expected. It was a woman, maybe in her 30s. She stopped in front of me and asked my name. I said yes, and she nodded like she was confirming something. Then she said she was Jason. At first, I didn't understand. I thought she was joking, maybe a messenger or a friend. But she wasn't. She sat down across from me and started explaining everything. She said her real name was Caroline. She said Jason was her husband. He really existed. The man in the photos, the one I thought I'd been talking to all this time, was real. But he was thousands of miles away serving overseas. She said she'd been using his identity the whole time. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. She said she started the account because she was lonely. Her husband was gone most of the year, and she felt invisible. She said she'd made the profile years ago just to browse, just to feel connected to someone, but over time, she started talking to people as if she were him. She said pretending to be Jason made her feel close to him. She said she missed the sound of him, the way people admired him, the way everyone respected him. She said she wanted to feel that admiration again, to feel wanted. She said it started as a small thing, a comment here, a message there. Then one day, someone replied, and it became real. She said it wasn't about attraction. It was about control, about escaping her empty house and pretending her life wasn't falling apart. I sat there frozen, listening to her. She said she used his photos without him knowing. She said he had no idea what she was doing. Every message she'd ever sent me, every story she told, every confession, it was all her. She said the voice calls were her too, disguised slightly. She said she practiced to sound lower, rehearsed before calling. She said she didn't think anyone would ever actually want to meet. She said she thought I'd just stay a screen name like everyone else. Then she told me she wasn't the only one. She said there were others she talked to, people she'd built fake connections with. She said she didn't know why she kept doing it. Every time she promised herself she'd stop, she'd get bored, lonely, and start again. She said she convinced herself that since she wasn't asking for money or anything physical, it wasn't really wrong. But she knew it was. She said it made her feel alive again, having someone care, having someone hang on her words like she used to do with her husband before he left. It was twisted, and I didn't know how to respond. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd been carrying guilt for years. She said she deleted the account that morning before meeting me. She said she wanted to end it properly, not just disappear like she'd done with the others. I didn't say much. I didn't even know how to process it. Everything I thought I knew about Jason was gone. Every late-night conversation, every memory, it all belonged to someone else. Someone pretending. When she finally stood up to leave, she said she was sorry. She said she'd go bed forgive her, but she didn't expect me to. She said she just wanted someone to know the truth because she couldn't live with it anymore. I sat there long after she left, trying to understand how someone could build a fake version of their spouse and use it to fill a hole left by their marriage. It wasn't just betrayal, it was something darker. Later that night, I looked up her husband. He had a public page. His real photos. His real life. He was still overseas, still active duty, posting updates about missing his wife. He had no idea. I thought about messaging him, telling him everything, but I didn't. I deleted all of it instead, the messages, the photos, everything. I didn't want any connection left to it. Weeks later, I saw the same face again. Not Jason, but another account using the same photos. Different name this time. I knew it was her. The writing style, the tone, everything. She was doing it again. That's when I realized she couldn't stop. It wasn't about love or comfort anymore. It was about living through someone else's face, someone else's life. The fake version of her husband had become her way to survive, her way to feel something real while living a lie. Jason never knew me, but his wife did, and that was somehow worse. It started online like most mistakes do. Her name was Ella. She messaged me first on a dating app, which was rare, and I remember thinking that she didn't seem like the kind of person who had to reach out to anyone. Her profile was clean and simple, with a few photos that looked straight out of a lifestyle magazine. She had that kind of look that made you stop scrolling. One photo was her sitting by a window with sunlight hitting her face, another holding a coffee cup and smiling, and one where she was at the park with a toddler. The caption said, "Me and my little guy." She said she was 27, a single mom, and worked in marketing. It sounded believable. There was nothing over the top about her. Her messages didn't sound fake either. She was confident, funny, and down to earth. She said she didn't have much free time because of her kid, but she liked talking when she could. I respected that. It made her seem responsible. We started messaging back and forth almost every day. She'd tell me stories about her son, how he liked dinosaurs, how he refused to eat anything green, how he'd fall asleep watching cartoons. It felt genuine, like something only a parent could say. She'd sometimes send me photos of him too, blurry ones from a distance, like she didn't want to show too much. I didn't think twice about it. She said she was careful about who she trusted because of her past. She said her ex wasn't around, that she'd been doing everything on her own since he left. I felt bad for her. She didn't sound like someone looking for attention, just someone tired of carrying everything by herself. I admired that. We started getting closer. She'd message me late at night, talking about life and how hard it was to juggle everything. She'd call me sometimes too. Her voice was soft, mature. There was nothing in it that sounded suspicious. I didn't question her age for a second. After a few weeks, we started talking about meeting up. She said she didn't want to rush it because of her son, but she was open to it soon. She said she just wanted to make sure I was serious first. I was fine with that. We planned for something casual, coffee, nothing big. Then one night, everything started to unravel. I got a message from an account I didn't recognize. It was a woman who said she needed to talk to me about Ella. She sent me a screenshot of Ella's profile picture and another link. When I clicked it, I froze. It was the same photo, but it belonged to a completely different person. The real woman was a model, someone with thousands of followers. All the pictures Ella used were hers, every single one. I messaged Ella immediately. At first, she didn't reply. Then hours later, she finally sent a long message. She said she wasn't who I thought she was. She said her real name wasn't Ella. She said she wasn't 27, she wasn't a mom, and the photos weren't hers. She said she was 17. I didn't even know how to react. She said she'd made the profile months ago, just for fun. She said she didn't expect anyone to actually talk to her. She said she'd stolen the photos from Instagram because she wanted to see what it would be like to be taken seriously, to have people listen to her, to treat her like an adult. She said she was tired of being invisible at school, tired of feeling like a kid who didn't matter. She said pretending to be older made her feel powerful. I asked her about the child she'd mentioned, and she admitted it wasn't real. The kid in the photos was the model's nephew. She said she made it up because she thought it would make her seem mature and responsible. She said she liked the idea of someone seeing her as more than just a teenager. She said she didn't mean to hurt me. She said she never thought I'd actually want to meet. She said she didn't realize how serious it had become. She sounded terrified. That's when it hit me. If anyone found out, I could have been in serious trouble. I didn't know her real age until that moment, but that wouldn't have mattered. Her profile said 27. Everything she told me said 27. But if someone saw our messages, they'd never believe I didn't know. I told her to delete everything. I said I never wanted to hear from her again. She said she understood. She said she'd already deleted her fake account. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I thought about it, the more it scared me. How easy it was. How real it all felt. She'd built a believable life from stolen photos and a few made-up stories. Everything she said had sounded genuine. Her job, her kid, her struggles. There were no red flags. I looked back through our old messages and felt sick. There was nothing inappropriate, but it didn't matter. Just the fact that I'd been talking to someone underage, unknowingly, was bad enough. A few days later, I got another message from her. It came from a new account. She said she wanted to apologize again. She said she deleted everything and didn't plan on doing it again. She said she just wanted to tell the truth because lying made her feel disgusting. She said she never had anyone who treated her kindly before, and for once, she wanted to know what it felt like to matter. I didn't reply. Weeks passed, and I tried to forget about it. Then I saw a new profile on the same dating app. Different name, different photos, but something about the way it was written looked familiar. The captions, the tone, it felt the same. I didn't click on it, but I knew it was her again starting over. I deleted the app that night. I couldn't stop thinking about how close I'd come to something that could ruin my life. Sometimes I still wonder about her. If she ever stopped pretending, if she ever realized how dangerous what she was doing really was. Maybe she's still out there somewhere, playing another role, using someone else's life to escape her own. Ella wasn't real, but the girl behind her was, and she was lost enough to risk everything just to feel seen. I joined after losing someone close to me. The group wasn't big, maybe 20 people at most. Everyone was there for the same reason, to talk, to heal, to not feel alone. It was supposed to be a safe space. That's where I met Daniel. He joined a few weeks after me. His first post was about losing his wife. He said she died suddenly in an accident, and that he didn't know how to keep living without her. His words were raw and emotional, like someone who'd been broken open. I remember reading it and instantly relating. I messaged him privately to say I understood what he was going through, and that small act turned into something that went on for months. At first, it was just two people trying to survive their grief. He told me he couldn't sleep at night, so he'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. I told him about the empty house I lived in now, how I still expected to hear the voice I'd lost. We shared everything, our pain, memories, guilt, even the random things that made the days bearable. He made me feel understood in a way no one else did. He said his wife's name was Claire. He'd talk about her in detail, her favorite songs, the food she loved, how she'd leave notes in his coat pocket before work. He made her sound real, and I believed every word. He said losing her destroyed him. I believed that too because I knew how it felt. We started messaging daily. It wasn't romantic. It was just this connection between two people who had lost everything. Or at least, that's what I thought. He said I made him feel less alone. That helped him start smiling again. I thought we were helping each other heal. He didn't post much in the group anymore. Mostly he just messaged me. He'd say he couldn't talk to anyone else because they didn't understand. He said people in his real life kept telling him to move on, and he hated hearing that. I felt bad for him. It reminded me of myself. I thought maybe I was helping someone who needed it. Then, after a few months, things started feeling strange. His stories didn't always line up. He'd mention his wife's favorite movie one week and say he'd never seen it the next. He once said her accident happened in December, but later he said it was in summer. I noticed small inconsistencies, but I told myself grief made people confused. It messes with your memory. Then one night, while I was scrolling through the group, I noticed something. Someone had commented on one of his old posts saying they were sorry for his loss, but they also mentioned seeing him tagged in a photo with his wife recently. The comment disappeared minutes later, deleted by an admin, but it stuck in my head. I searched his name online. It didn't take long to find his profile. The first thing I saw was his profile picture, him smiling next to a woman. The same woman he'd said was dead. Her page was active too. Pictures of them together from just weeks ago. They looked happy, very much alive. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling, and everything started clicking into place. His grief posts were gone, replaced with normal ones, weekend trips, dinners, selfies. I felt sick. I messaged him. I didn't even try to hide how angry I was. He replied after an hour like nothing was wrong. He said he could explain. He said he hadn't lied about everything, just some parts. He said his wife didn't die. She'd left him for a while, and he joined the group to cope. Then he said she came back, but he stayed in the group anyway because he didn't want to lose the connections he'd made. He said talking to me made him feel better. He said I was easy to talk to. He said he didn't mean to hurt me. He just wanted someone who cared. I didn't reply. I couldn't. It felt disgusting knowing he used the same grief I was drowning in as a tool for attention. All those nights I comforted him, thinking I was helping another broken person. None of it was real. He hadn't lost anyone. He faked pain to get sympathy. The next day, he sent a long message apologizing. He said he joined the group because he was lonely. He said he hated his marriage, hated how empty his life felt, and wanted to see what it was like to be cared about without strings attached. He said pretending to be widowed made people treat him differently. They were softer, kinder, more understanding. He said when he talked to me, it felt like therapy. He said I listened, and that made him feel alive again. He said he never planned to take it this far, but he couldn't stop. It wasn't grief for him. It was attention. He said his wife didn't know. She thought he was part of a work group. He said she wouldn't understand. That was the part that hit hardest. How easily he twisted everything to justify himself. He wasn't some lost man in pain. He was someone who used grief like a costume, who stepped into our pain to make his own life feel less boring. I left the group the same day. I deleted everything, my posts, my comments, the messages between us. But a week later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the group again using a fake account. He was still there, still posting. Only now his story had changed again. He said he'd lost his wife to cancer. Hundreds of people commented, sending him love and prayers. I wanted to scream at the screen. He was doing it again, feeding off strangers who didn't know he was lying. I sent a message to one of the moderators explaining everything. They said they'd look into it. A few days later, his profile disappeared. I thought maybe they'd banned him, but I couldn't shake the thought that he'd just make another one under a different name. Months later, I stumbled across a new grief forum while searching for something unrelated. There was a post from someone named David. Same writing style, same tone, talking about how he lost his wife in a car accident. The profile picture looked different, but I knew it was him. I closed the page and didn't go back. Sometimes I still think about him. About how he looked at people's pain like a mirror and used it for comfort. How he built fake grief to make real connections. Daniel never lost anyone, but he learned how to act like he did, and that made him dangerous in a way I can't explain.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
Her name was Lily. Her profile looked perfect. Every photo looked like it belonged in a magazine. She had that effortless look that most people try too hard to fake. Designer clothes, clear skin, perfect lighting, expensive restaurants. She always seemed to be somewhere new. Paris, London, New York. Every picture had that same flawless smile and calm energy, like she was living a life most people could only dream about. I don't even remember who messaged first. It just started. One comment turned into a conversation, and before I knew it, we were talking every day. She was funny, easy to talk to, and nothing like what you'd expect from someone with that kind of profile. She didn't act arrogant or fake. She made jokes about random things, stayed up late texting me about movies, music, and life. She told me she worked in fashion, as she'd started modeling part-time while studying. It made sense, given her pictures. She said she loved the creative side of it, but hated how shallow people could be. That sounded believable. She didn't seem like someone chasing fame. After a few weeks, I started to really like her. She had this energy that made you feel like she was genuinely interested in you. She remembered everything I told her, always asked how my day went, and sent long messages about hers. She made it sound like her life was full but lonely. She said people around her only cared about appearances, and she wanted something real. I believed every word. Eventually, we decided to meet in person. She said she wanted to keep it low-key. No fancy dinner, no crowd, just coffee. She said she didn't want to be recognized by anyone from work. That made sense too, at the time. I got to the cafe early, nervous but excited. I kept refreshing her messages, and she texted that she was already there sitting by the window. I looked around, expecting to see the girl from her pictures, the one in designer clothes, glowing skin, hair perfectly styled. But when I saw her, I froze. The woman sitting there didn't look anything like the Lily I'd been talking to. She was heavier, her face tired, her clothes plain and oversized. Her hair looked unkempt, her skin pale, and she didn't have the same confidence that came through her messages. For a moment, I thought there had been a mistake. Then she smiled nervously, and I knew it was her. She looked at me and immediately apologized before I even said anything. She said she wasn't who she pretended to be. She said the photos on her profile weren't hers. They belonged to a model she followed online. She said she'd been using that woman's pictures for years, not just with me, but with almost everyone she'd ever talked to online. She said she started doing it when she was younger. She made a fake account out of curiosity at first, but when people started liking the photos, it felt good. She said people treated her differently when they thought she looked perfect. Compliments, messages, attention, it all made her feel like she mattered. Then she started telling me about her real life. She said she lived in a small flat with her older sister and worked part-time at a grocery store. She said she'd never traveled anywhere, didn't own anything designer, and barely had money for rent. She said she hated mirrors, hated taking real photos of herself, and couldn't stand the way people looked at her when she walked down the street. She said pretending to be Lily, the perfect, confident version of herself, was the only way she could feel alive. She said she knew it was wrong but couldn't stop. Every time she got attention online, it gave her something she couldn't find anywhere else. She said it became an escape, a world where she was beautiful, wanted, admired. The more she talked, the more it became clear that she didn't even know where the real her ended and the fake one began. She said she spent so long pretending that she started believing it of herself. She'd stare at the fake pictures for hours, wishing she'd looked like that, wishing she could live that kind of life. I just sat there listening. I didn't know what to say. She looked completely broken. Her hands trembled every time she tried to explain. She said she didn't plan to keep lying to me forever. She said she wanted to tell me sooner, but every time she tried, she got scared. She said she thought I'd hate her if I saw who she really was. She said she didn't even remember what it felt like to be herself. She told me she had multiple accounts, each one a version of the same lie. Some were old, others new. Each one had its own fake personality, fake job, fake dreams. She said it wasn't just about pretending to be beautiful anymore. It was about pretending to be happy. She said her real life was a mess. She barely slept, barely ate. Her phone was filled with fake photos and captions she'd spent hours writing to sound real. She said she sometimes caught herself talking like her fake self in real life. It scared her. I asked her why she wanted to meet as she knew it would ruin everything. She said she wanted someone to finally know the truth. She said she was tired of being invisible in her real life, tired of only existing behind a screen. She said she tried to stop before, deleted everything, started over as herself, but no one cared. She said when she posted real photos, no one liked them. No one commented. It made her feel like disappearing, so she went back to being fake. She said people only liked her when she wasn't her. It hit me then that she didn't do it to manipulate anyone. She did it because she genuinely hated herself. She wasn't trying to scam anyone for money or gain anything tangible. All she wanted was validation, someone to tell her she mattered, even if it was based on a lie. After a while, she stopped talking. She just sat there, staring at her hands like she'd run out of excuses. I didn't know what to say. There wasn't anything to say. When I left the cafe, I turned back once. She was still sitting there, staring out the window. Later that night, I checked her profile. It was gone, deleted completely. For a second, I thought maybe she meant it. Maybe she was finally done pretending. But a few weeks later, I saw another account. Same model, same type of photos, different name. It didn't take much to figure out it was her. That's when I realized she'd never stop. The fake version of her wasn't just a lie. It had become her only way to survive. Lily wasn't real, but the woman behind her was someone who had forgotten how to exist without pretending. It started one night when I couldn't sleep and ended up scrolling through a dating app just to pass time. His name was Mark, and his profile stood out right away. Every photo looked like something from a fitness magazine. Him hiking mountains, running along a beach at sunrise, flexing in a gym mirror with perfect lighting. His bio said something about chasing discipline, not perfection, and I remember thinking it sounded deep for a dating app. He looked confident, strong, and grounded like someone who had his life figured out. He messaged me first. The message wasn't corny or weird, just something casual about one of my photos. We started talking, and he was surprisingly easy to get along with. He wasn't arrogant like most gym guys I'd seen online. He seemed humble, funny, and thoughtful. He told me he trained 6 days a week, worked as a personal trainer, and loved helping people get into shape. I wasn't even into fitness that much, but the way he talked about it made it sound like a lifestyle worth admiring. We started talking daily. He'd send me motivational texts in the morning, talk about how discipline shaped his mindset, and how physical health connected to emotional health. It wasn't just talk either. He backed it up with endless photos of him at the gym, sweaty and smiling, or hiking somewhere new. He seemed like someone who was always on the move. I liked that he wasn't just about looks. He'd ask how my day was, talk about family, mental health, and small things that made life better. He felt real. The kind of guy who worked hard but stayed humble. I'd never met someone who made me feel that comfortable over text. A few weeks in, he asked if I wanted to meet in person. He said he just finished a long stretch of work and wanted to take a break. We picked a small restaurant halfway between us, and I spent all morning thinking about it. I wasn't nervous, just excited. I'd seen so many photos of him by then that I could already imagine what it would be like sitting across from him. When I got to the restaurant, I texted him that I was there. He said he was walking in. I looked up, expecting to see the same tall, muscular guy from his photos, the one who looked like he lived in the gym. Instead, a completely different man walked toward me. He was shorter, thinner, and awkwardly hunched, like he wanted to disappear into his hoodie. His hair was messy, his skin pale, and his arms looked like they hadn't lifted a weight in years. He looked nervous, almost shaking as he sat down across from me. I just stared at him, waiting for an explanation. He didn't make me wait long. He looked down, then quietly said that he wasn't who I thought he was. He told me his real name was Mark, but everything else, the pictures, the fitness stuff, the stories, was fake. He said he'd been using photos of a fitness influencer he followed online. He built his entire dating life around those stolen images. He said he didn't mean to deceive people at first, but once he saw how much attention the fake version of himself got, he couldn't stop. He said he hated his real body. He said he'd always been skinny, unathletic, and insecure. He said no one ever paid attention to him, not in school, not at work, not anywhere. But when he created the fake fitness account, everything changed. People messaged him first. Women called him attractive, confident, inspiring. He said it made him feel powerful for the first time in his life. He said every time someone liked his pictures, it was like validation that he could never get in real life. He said he'd spend hours scrolling through the influencer's social media, saving pictures and pretending they were his. He said he memorized small details about the guy's life so his lies would sound more convincing. It wasn't about money or scamming. He said he never asked for anything. He just wanted connection. He said the fake Mark was everything he wished he could be. Strong, confident, respected. The real him was lonely, stuck in a dead-end job, living in a small apartment, and too afraid to step foot in a gym because he thought everyone would laugh at him. He said he planned to confess weeks ago, but every time he tried, he got scared I'd leave. He said the more we talked, the more he wished he could actually be the person in those photos. He said he'd wake up in the morning, look at his real reflection, and feel disgusted. The only time he felt good was when he was pretending. Listening to him talk, I could see how broken he was. He wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. He just didn't know who he was anymore. He said pretending to be someone else had become his only way to feel like he mattered. He told me he had hundreds of photos saved on his phone, carefully labeled and organized. He said he used filters to make them look slightly different, so people wouldn't notice they came from the same account. He said he even made fake gym check-ins and used random stock images of workout meals to make his stories seem believable. The more he talked, the more I realized how deep his insecurities went. He said he'd been bullied as a kid for being weak and skinny. He said every relationship he ever had ended because he thought they'd eventually get bored of him. He said pretending to be Mark the athlete gave him a version of himself that no one could mock. When I asked him why he kept it going so long, he said it was because of people like me. He said when I called him kind and funny, he started to believe maybe the fake version could make someone happy, even if the real one couldn't. He said he didn't expect forgiveness. He just wanted me to know the truth. I didn't say much after that. I think I was too stunned to. He looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. When I finally got up to leave, he just nodded and said he'd delete everything. Later that night, I checked his profile. It was gone, deleted completely. A week later, I saw a new account pop up on the same app. Different name, different face, but the same pattern. Gym photos, hiking shots, motivational captions. I clicked on it and instantly recognized the way he wrote. It was him again, starting over with another fake identity. That's when I realized he probably couldn't stop. The fake life was the only thing that made him feel alive. The real version of Mark didn't exist online anymore. He'd buried himself under all those stolen pictures, lost in a body he couldn't accept. I deleted my account not long after that. Sometimes I still think about him, the man who pretended to be strong because he thought no one would love him if he wasn't. His name was Nathan, and his profile looked like something out of a movie. Expensive cars, designer clothes, trips to different cities. It all gave off this air of confidence and success. He looked like someone who had it all together. His photos showed him on yachts, rooftop restaurants, and standing in front of a skyline that looked straight out of a travel ad. I didn't question any of it because everything about him seemed polished and believable. He messaged me first. He said he liked my profile because I seemed genuine and down to earth, not like the people he usually met. It sounded flattering, and his tone wasn't pushy like most people online. We started talking daily, and right away, I noticed how well he communicated. He was charming but patient, confident without bragging, the kind of person who made you feel seen. He told me he worked in real estate and ran a few side businesses. He said he built everything himself from nothing, which made him seem even more impressive. He talked about his work with a mix of pride and exhaustion, like someone who carried too much responsibility but didn't complain about it. He sent pictures of his office, his car, even the view from what he said was his penthouse apartment. The more we talked, the more I started to believe I'd met someone special. He'd ask about my life, my goals, my past relationships. He remembered small details, like my favorite coffee order and the name of my dog. He made me feel like I was part of his world, like he was genuinely building something serious with me. After a few weeks, we started talking about the future. He'd say things like how nice it would be to travel together or how he wanted to show me the places he'd been. At first, it sounded like small talk, but then he mentioned marriage. He said he was tired of shallow people, and that was different. He said he could actually see a future with me. It moved fast, but it didn't feel fake. Everything he said felt real because he never made it sound too perfect. He talked about struggles too, like how people only saw the money and not the person behind it. I started to feel like I was getting to know the real him. Then he started mentioning problems with his family. He said his father was sick and that he'd been handling the medical bills himself. He never asked for money, but he talked about how stressful it was, and I'd always feel bad for him. I even offered to help once, but he refused, saying he didn't want that kind of relationship. It made me trust him even more. After 2 months of talking, we decided to meet in person. He said he wanted to make it special, that he'd book a nice dinner spot. The day came, and I remember feeling nervous but excited. I'd seen so many photos of him by then that I could practically imagine what he'd look like walking toward me. I got to the restaurant early and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Finally, a woman walked up to me and said my name. I looked at her confused because I didn't recognize her. She looked older, tired, wearing plain clothes that didn't match anything close to the lifestyle Nathan had shown me. She told me she was Nathan. I thought it was a joke, but she was dead serious. She sat down across from me and started explaining everything before I could even react. Her real name was Carla. She said Nathan wasn't real. He was a character she created years ago. She used his identity on different dating apps to talk to people, mostly women, sometimes men, depending on what she wanted. She said she wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but she couldn't stop. She said pretending to be Nathan made her feel powerful, desirable, in control of a life she'd never have in reality. She said the photos she used belonged to a real man she found online years ago. She said she picked him because he looked perfect, confident, successful, like someone who had never struggled. She said when she started talking to people as him, they treated her like she mattered. She said it made her feel alive. She said she used to work in an office but lost her job during a bad period in her life. Her marriage had fallen apart, her family didn't talk to her, and she barely had enough money to pay rent. She said creating Nathan's profile started as a distraction, but it quickly became her entire world. She admitted she had used Nathan's persona to get money before. She said it started small, asking for help with family emergencies or medical bills. Sometimes people would send her hundreds, sometimes thousands. She said she'd always tell herself she'd stop after one more conversation, but she never did. She said she wasn't after my money. She said what she wanted from me was something else. Attention, connection, someone who made her feel like she still had value. She said every time she talked to me, she forgot about who she really was. For those hours, she could pretend she was Nathan, the man she'd always wished she could be around. Listening to her talk was surreal. She didn't look evil or manipulative. She looked broken. Her hands shook as she spoke, her eyes red from crying. She said she'd been caught before by other people, but never stopped. She said she was addicted to it, to the idea of being wanted. She said she had several phones and accounts, each one a different version of Nathan, each one talking to someone new. She said she kept track of them all in a notebook, writing down every person's name, details, and what stories she told them so she wouldn't mix things up. She said it made her feel organized, like she had control again. I didn't know what to say. She looked at me with this strange mix of guilt and relief, like she was finally saying something she'd been hiding for too long. She said she couldn't stop because her real life felt too empty. She said no one cared about Carla, but everyone wanted Nathan. After a while, I told her I was leaving. She didn't try to stop me. She just nodded and said she was sorry. As I walked out, she sat there staring at her phone, probably looking at the fake account again. That night, I searched Nathan's profile, but it was gone. Deleted completely. For a second, I thought she might actually stop, but a few weeks later, I got a message from another account. Different name, same tone, same way of writing. It didn't take long to figure out it was her again. I blocked it without replying. Months later, I read an article online about a woman arrested for running multiple fake dating accounts to scam people. Her name was Carla. The photos looked exactly like her. The story said she made thousands of dollars over the years by pretending to be different people, mostly a man named Nathan. It didn't surprise me. I think she loved the fake world too much to ever really give it up. Nathan never existed, but the woman behind him. She existed in the emptiest way possible, lost in the life she built out of lies, pretending to be someone worth loving. He found me through a mutual group online, and his profile looked genuine. He had a warm smile, short brown hair, and a few casual pictures that made him seem like the kind of person who had his life together, but didn't take himself too seriously. One was at a lake with a fishing rod, another at a barbecue with friends, and one of him at a hospital fundraiser, holding a coffee cup with a grin that made him seem approachable. He came across as real. At first, the messages were normal. Simple things like how my day was, what kind of work I did, what music I liked. He was charming without trying too hard, and that's what drew me in. He said he was from a nearby town, working as a paramedic, and that he lived a quiet life. The way he talked made it sound like he had depth, like someone who'd been through a lot but still managed to stay kind. We started talking daily. It felt real. He remembered small things I told him, like how I liked my coffee or what song I listened to on the way to work. He'd message in the mornings and late at night. I started to look forward to those texts, even the smallest ones. After a few weeks, he mentioned that he was taking care of his younger brother who was sick. He said it wasn't something he liked to talk about because it was hard, but it came out when he was explaining why he was tired all the time. It made sense. He said his brother had a rare illness, and the medical bills were piling up. I felt bad for him. He never asked for help directly, but he'd talk about the stress of it. A month later, he said his brother's condition had worsened, and he needed to stay at the hospital longer. I remember feeling helpless, wanting to do something. He mentioned how expensive it was, how the treatments were draining everything he had. I didn't even think twice when I offered to help. It wasn't a lot, just $60 at first. He said he didn't want to take it, but eventually accepted, thanking me and saying I had no idea how much it meant. That small act of kindness turned into a pattern. Over the next few weeks, he mentioned needing to buy medication or cover a bill, and I'd send more. Not large amounts minus $30 here, $50 there, but it added up. He'd always thank me, say he'd pay me back when things got better. I never pushed him for it because it felt like I was helping someone good. Then he suggested we meet in person. He said he wanted to finally see me and thank me properly. We planned to meet at a cafe near the hospital where his brother was supposedly being treated. I showed up early, nervous but excited. I even texted him that I was there. He said he was just finishing up with something and would be down soon. I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No one came. Then I saw a woman standing outside, looking around like she was searching for someone. She caught my eye, hesitated, and walked toward me. She asked if I was waiting for Chris. My stomach dropped immediately. She said she was too. We compared our messages, and it was the same person. Same photos. Same story about the sick brother. That's when I realized something was very wrong. The woman said she'd been talking to him for months too, and had sent money just like I did. She told me that after a while, something started to feel off, so she reverse searched his pictures. Turns out, the man in the photos wasn't named Chris. He was a real person, but he lived across the country, and his images had been stolen. Someone else had been using his pictures for years to scam people. My mind was spinning. I opened my phone and searched too. It didn't take long to find the real man's social media. He was married, had kids, and had no idea his photos were being used. That's when it clicked that the voice notes, the messages, the charm, all of it was fake. The woman I met at the cafe told me she'd already done some digging and found something even worse. It wasn't just one fake account. It was a whole network. Dozens of profiles, all using different pictures and names, but the same stories. Some were men, some were women, but they were all connected by one thing, the same bank account. Every time someone sent money for the sick brother, it went to the same person. The name linked to the account was a woman's name. We tracked it down online, and that's when the pieces fell together. The woman behind it wasn't who anyone thought she was. She built multiple fake identities, pretending to be different people depending on who she was talking to. Sometimes she was Chris, sometimes she was Jake, sometimes even Jennifer. She'd mastered how to change her tone, her wording, even her texting habits. She'd been doing it for years. I reported it to the police, but they said scams like this were complicated to track. The woman at the cafe and I compared notes, and it was clear we weren't the only victims. There were others, people she'd used emotionally and financially, all with the same story about a sick family member. Weeks later, I got a message from a new account. It was someone named Ryan. The profile picture looked different, but something about the way the messages were written felt too familiar. I reverse searched the image, and sure enough, it was a stolen photo. The real person had no connection. That's when I realized she was still out there, probably running dozens of these conversations at once. I stopped replying to everything after that. Deleted all the apps, changed my number, and tried to move on. But sometimes I'd still get those random friend requests from strangers with perfect smiles and too good to be true bios. I never accepted them. Months later, I read an article about an online fraud ring that had been exposed. It was run by a woman in her 40s who used fake profiles to trick people into sending money for medical emergencies. The photo in the article showed her sitting in court, looking empty and expressionless. Her name matched the one on the account where I'd sent the money. It turned out she'd been doing this for years. She'd built a network of fake identities so detailed that she could keep track of hundreds of conversations at once. Every time someone caught on, she'd delete everything and start over with new pictures, new names, and new stories. The realization that I'd been one of her targets didn't even make me angry. It just made me feel small, like I'd been another file in a folder somewhere. Chris never existed. None of them did. Just one woman sitting behind a screen, pretending to be anyone but herself, using lies to survive off strangers who thought they were helping someone in need. Her name was Jennifer. Her profile picture showed a woman with soft brown hair, green eyes, and a smile that felt like it could calm you down. Her bio was short but interesting. She wrote something about being a writer who loved quiet nights and long drives. It didn't sound fake, just normal. We started messaging after she replied to a post I made. It wasn't anything special at first, just small talk about movies and random things. But the more we talked, the more we connected. She was funny, thoughtful, and always had the right thing to say. It felt easy. She had this way of making me feel like I actually mattered, like she was genuinely interested in me. She told me she lived a few towns away, said she worked from home, writing freelance articles for different companies. That made sense because she was always online. We talk all day, every day. She'd send pictures, nothing over the top, just regular selfies, sometimes with a coffee mug, sometimes with her laptop open beside her. Every photo looked consistent, and she never seemed fake. I told her things I hadn't told anyone else. She'd listen, and she'd always respond with something that made me feel understood. It wasn't long before we started talking like we'd known each other for years. I started looking forward to her messages more than anything else. She said she felt the same way. After a few weeks, we decided to meet. She said she wanted to take things slow because she'd been through a rough past, but she finally agreed to a casual lunch. She picked a cafe that was about halfway between us. I remember being nervous that morning, trying to look decent without seeming like I was trying too hard. I even left early to make sure I wasn't late. When I got there, I texted her that I'd arrived. She said she was already inside. I walked in and looked around, expecting to see the woman from her photos, the same one with the warm smile and soft brown hair. But no one matched that description. There was only one woman sitting alone by the window staring down at her phone. She looked up when she saw me, and for a second I thought maybe she was just another customer. Then she waved. It was her, but not the person I'd been talking to. She looked completely different, older, pale, and fragile looking. Her hair was dull and uneven. Her clothes looked like they didn't quite fit her right. Her eyes looked tired, not the bright green I'd seen in every photo. For a second, I thought there'd been some kind of mistake. But then she'd said my name, and I knew. She smiled nervously and told me she was sorry before I could even say anything. I sat down across from her, still trying to process it. She didn't waste time explaining. She said her name wasn't Jennifer. She said she'd been using fake pictures for years, stolen from random people she found online. She said she didn't even remember when she started doing it. It had been so long that she lost track. She said she'd built so many versions of herself online that she didn't even know who she really was anymore. Jennifer wasn't a real person. She was a collection of lies that had gone on too long. She said she wasn't working as a writer like she told me. She didn't have a job at all. She said she was staying in a mental health facility just outside of town. She'd been there for almost 2 years, in and out of treatment for depression and identity issues. She said the only way she could cope was by pretending to be someone else, someone people would actually want to talk to. She said she created different profiles over time, all with different names and stories. Some lasted a few months, others only a few weeks. I was just one of the many people she talked to while pretending to be Jennifer. She said she never meant to hurt anyone, but she couldn't stop herself. Every time she made a new profile, she told herself it would be the last one, but she'd always come back. She told me she used to look at her fake photos for hours, pretending it was her reflection. She said she built this fantasy life around them, a fake job, fake hobbies, even fake friends. She knew the model in the photos had a real name and real life, but she said it didn't matter anymore because in her mind had she become her. The more she talked, the more it felt like I was listening to someone completely detached from reality. She said she started making up memories she never had, stories she couldn't tell apart from the truth. She said sometimes she'd forget who she was supposed to be. I asked her why she agreed to meet me if she didn't plan to keep pretending. She said she'd been caught before by other people and wanted to come clean this time. She said she'd grown tired of living behind the screen, but she was scared to face anyone as herself. She said the staff at the facility didn't even know she was still doing it. They thought she deleted everything, but she hadn't. She said she'd sneak online at night and use the phone she kept hidden from them. That's how she'd started talking to me. I didn't even know what to say to any of it. I just sat there listening while she explained how much she hated the real version of herself. She said she felt like nobody ever wanted to know her unless she was pretending to be someone better. She said the fake attention kept her going, even if it meant lying. She said she had done this for years, talking to men online, using the same pictures, telling the same stories. Someone would find out and block her, but others, like me, believed every word. She said it made her feel loved, even if it was fake. She said the real her wasn't worth loving. When she finished, she looked down and said she knew I wouldn't want to talk to her again. She was right. I paid for my coffee, stood up, and left. She didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, staring at her hands, looking smaller than I'd ever seen anyone look. Later that night, I got one last message from her. It wasn't long, just a single line saying she was sorry and that she hoped I'd remember the good parts. I wasn't even planning to take it seriously. I just wanted to talk to someone and get to know a few people. That's when I matched with this guy named Jake. His pictures instantly stood out. Tan skin, messy hair, wide smile, all those beach shots that looked effortlessly cool. There was one where he was holding a surfboard with the sunset behind him, another where he was sitting around a bonfire with friends. He looked confident, fit, and genuinely happy. His bio said something short like outdoors, dogs, and good conversation. Simple, but it worked. He messaged me first, and I remember thinking he seemed different from most guys on there. He didn't try too hard. He wasn't cringe or overly flirty. He just seemed relaxed. We started talking, and right away, it felt easy. He told me about his job, his family, his love for the beach, and how he traveled a lot for work. Every story sounded believable. He even sent photos of his travels, beaches, palm trees, hotel views, all that stuff. The more we talked, the more I liked him. He always seemed confident and grounded. He'd ask how my day was, send voice notes that sounded casual and warm. We got into this routine where he'd text me every morning and call me every night. It didn't take long before I felt like I knew him. He said he wasn't into fake people and that he liked things simple and real. Ironic, now that I think about it. After a few weeks, we started planning to meet. He said he wanted to take me to this small cafe near the beach where he hung out with his friends. I agreed without hesitation. He sounded so excited, and honestly, I was too. I'd never felt this comfortable with someone online before. The day came when I got there early. I kept rechecking my phone, expecting a text from him saying he was close. Then I got one saying he was already inside. My stomach did this nervous flip. I took a deep breath, walked in, and started scanning the room. That's when I saw him, or at least I thought it was him. There was a guy sitting by the window looking up at me. He waved, but I hesitated because he looked nothing like the Jake from the pictures. He was thinner, almost frail looking. His skin was pale, covered in acne scars, and he wore oversized clothes that made him look even smaller. His hair was greasy, his eyes tired. For a second, I thought maybe I'd walked up to the wrong person. But then he said my name, and I realized it was him. I sat down, still trying to process everything. He looked nervous, tapping his fingers on the table, avoiding eye contact. I didn't know where to start, so I just asked him if the pictures he'd sent were really him. He went quiet for a bit before admitting they weren't. He said the guy in the photos was his cousin. He said they used to be close, but they'd grown apart over the years. His cousin had this perfect life, the body, the looks, the career, everything. He said he'd always felt like the invisible one in the family. Every time there was a family gathering, everyone talked about his cousin's achievements, and never his. He said one day he decided to use his cousin's photos on a dating app just to see what it would feel like to be him. He said at first it was just supposed to be a joke. He wanted to know if people would treat him differently if he looked like his cousin. But then, when people actually started matching with him, he couldn't stop. He said he loved how it felt when people complimented him or called him attractive. He said it was the first time in years that he didn't hate himself. The more he talked, the sadder it got. He said he never planned to meet anyone in person, but with me, it felt different. He said he started to feel guilty every time I called him by a name that wasn't really his. He said he tried to stop it, but the more we talked, the harder it became to let go of the fake version of himself. It was strange listening to him explain all of it. I could see how much it messed with his head. He wasn't some scammer trying to steal money or get something out of me. He was just someone who hated his life so much that he wanted to live in someone else's. He said he envied his cousin's entire existence. How confident he was, how easy everything seemed for him. He said even as a kid, people compared them. His cousin was the popular one, the one who got invited everywhere, while he stayed in the background. He said the fake profile gave him the chance to finally feel like the person he'd always wished he could be. He admitted he edited his own voice notes too, to make his voice sound deeper. He said he practiced what to say before calling, terrified that I'd noticed something was off. Every conversation we had was planned out in his head beforehand. He said he'd stare at the mirror after we hung up, hating himself for lying, but also feeling like he couldn't stop. I sat there, not even angry anymore, just tired. It was clear he didn't do it to hurt me, but it didn't make it any easier to sit across from someone who wasn't the person I thought I'd been talking to. After a while, he said he didn't expect me to forgive him. He said he just wanted to tell the truth because it was starting to eat him alive. He said pretending to be someone else had become his entire life. Even when he wasn't talking to me, he'd keep the fake profile up just to feel wanted. He said sometimes late at night, he'd scroll through his cousin's social media, saving new pictures to use later. He said it made him feel closer to the person he could never be. I didn't know what to say to that. We sat in silence for a bit before I told him I had to go. He didn't try to stop me. He just said, "Thank you for meeting him anyway." I left the cafe, and that was the last time I ever saw or heard from him. I deleted his number, blocked the fake profile, and tried to forget about it. But every now and then, I'd think about how deep his insecurity must have gone for him to build a whole new identity just to feel worthy of attention. Months later, I found his cousin's real account online. Same pictures, same smile. He looked genuinely happy, the complete opposite of the man I met that day. It's strange how someone can borrow another person's life so easily, wear it like a mask, and for a while, make it feel real. But once you take off the mask, there's nothing left except the person who was never enough for themselves. A random follow on social media. Her name was Sophie, and her account looked normal. Selfies, a few group photos, some posts about her dog, and random things she liked. Nothing about it screamed fake. Her pictures looked natural, not like some influencer pretending to be perfect. She had that kind of look that felt effortless, like she didn't even have to try to be beautiful. She commented on one of my posts, something funny, and I replied. That was it. That's how it started. Within days, we were messaging back and forth constantly. She was funny in this natural way, sarcastic but kind. She knew how to keep a conversation going without it ever feeling awkward. The kind of person who made you forget you were texting and not actually talking in person. I remember thinking it was crazy how fast we clicked. Every message made me want to know her more. She'd tell me about her job, her friends, what shows she was watching. She wasn't fake or dramatic. She just seemed real. Her voice notes made her feel even closer. Soft voice, gentle laugh, sometimes yawning mid-sentence when she was tired. It all made her feel human. She'd send selfies sometimes, her in her car, her at work, even one of her making coffee in a messy bun. They looked real enough that I never questioned them. It didn't cross my mind that anything could be off because there was no reason to doubt her. After a few weeks, we were texting from morning to night. She'd send good morning messages before I was even awake and good night messages before going to bed. I started to really like her. She said she liked me too. She told me she hadn't connected with anyone like this in a long time. I believed her. She said she didn't use dating apps because they made her feel uncomfortable. She preferred meeting people naturally, which made me think I was lucky she even messaged me at all. She seemed confident, but sometimes she'd say small things that made me think she had her insecurities. She'd joke about hating how she looked or say she wasn't photogenic. I'd always tell her she looked great in her photos. After a few months, I asked if she wanted to meet. She said she'd love to, but wanted to wait until she felt ready. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I didn't push it. She said she was shy in person and didn't want to disappoint me. I thought she was just nervous. We kept talking for another month before she finally said yes. We planned to meet at a cafe she liked. I got there early feeling excited but anxious. I'd spent so long imagining what it would be like to finally see her. I kept refreshing her messages, waiting for the one that said she'd arrived. Then she texted that she was walking in. The door opened, and I looked up. The person who walked in didn't look anything like the Sophie I'd seen in pictures. She was shorter, heavier, older. Her hair was a different color. Her face didn't match any of the photos she'd sent. For a second, I thought maybe I had the wrong person. Then she smiled and said my name. My heart dropped. She could see the confusion on my face. She sat down and started explaining before I even said anything. She said she wasn't who she pretended to be. She said her real name wasn't Sophie either. It was something else, but she didn't tell me right away. She told me the photos she'd sent were of an online model she found years ago. She said she used them because she never felt good enough to be herself. She said she'd been catfishing people for years, not to scam them, but because it made her feel seen. She said when she used those photos, people paid attention to her. They called her beautiful. They treated her differently. She said she started doing it when she was in college. At first, it was just for fun. She wanted to see how people reacted to the pictures. But then it became an escape. She said she built a whole online version of herself, a confident, pretty girl who didn't have to try hard to be liked. She said she knew it was wrong but couldn't stop. Listening to her talk felt surreal. She wasn't crying, but her voice sounded empty, like she read the same script too many times before. She said she had been terrified to meet me but couldn't keep lying anymore. She said she thought if I met her, maybe I'd still like her for who she really was. But I didn't know who she really was. Everything I thought I knew was fake. The selfies, the voice notes, the stories. She said even the voice wasn't completely real. She used filters and audio effects to make herself sound softer. Every detail of Sophie was carefully built. I asked her why she kept it going for so long. She said fake love was better than no love. Those were her exact words. She said she'd rather have someone fall for a version of her that wasn't real than deal with being ignored as herself. She said she knew people only paid attention when she looked like someone worth noticing. She admitted there were others too. I wasn't the only one. She said she had dozens of conversations like ours over the years, each one lasting months before ending when the lies got too heavy. She said she'd delete everything, change the name, and start over again with someone new. When I asked her why she chose me, she said I seemed kind. She said I didn't just compliment her looks. I listened. That made her want to keep the lie going longer. I didn't stay much longer after that. I told her I had to go. She didn't try to stop me. She just said she was sorry and that she hoped one day she could stop hiding. I left the cafe and didn't look back. Later that night, I checked her account. It was gone. Deleted completely. No profile, no pictures, nothing. I tried searching the name, but it was like she'd never existed. A few days later, I saw the same model she'd used pop up on another account. Same photos, same captions. Different name this time. I didn't bother messaging. That was months ago, but sometimes I still think about it. How someone can live a whole other life behind the screen. How a voice, a few pictures, and well-timed words can make you believe something that isn't real. Sophie wasn't real, but whoever she was behind those pictures, she knew exactly how to make people believe she was. And his profile looked like something straight out of an adventure magazine. Hiking trails, mountaintops, scuba diving pictures, one where he was holding a surfboard with the sun behind him. It looked like he lived every day chasing excitement. His bio said he loved nature, early mornings, and people who didn't mind getting lost once in a while. It sounded confident and spontaneous. I was instantly curious. We started talking, and right away, it felt easy. He was funny, outgoing, and had that type of personality that made you want to know more. Every message from him felt full of energy, like he was someone who always had a story to tell. He'd talk about the places he'd been, his favorite trails, how he used to camp alone for days just to clear his head. I was impressed, honestly. He made me want to be more adventurous too. He said he worked as a freelance photographer, which made sense with all the outdoorsy pictures. Sometimes he'd send me photos of his recent shoots, mountains, forests, beaches. They looked professional but believable. I remember thinking that he had the kind of life people post about to make others jealous. For weeks we talked every day. Morning texts, calls at night. He had this calm voice, low and sure, like he always knew what he wanted to say. He'd ask about my day, listen, and always knew how to make me laugh. It felt like we were actually building something. When he suggested meeting in person, I was excited but nervous. He said he'd pick a quiet cafe halfway between where we both lived. I spent that morning feeling like it was something big. I even told my friends about him, describing how confident and kind he seemed. I kept thinking this was what meeting the right person was supposed to feel like. When I got to the cafe, I texted him that I was there. He replied right away, saying he was already inside. I walked in, expecting to see the tall, tan guy from his pictures. But there was no one like that in sight. I scanned the tables twice before a man in the corner stood up and waved. My heart sank instantly. He looked nothing like the photos. He was shorter, heavier, older, and had this nervous look in his eyes that I hadn't imagined once in all our conversations. He smiled, but it wasn't confident. It was forced, shaky. I just stood there for a second, not sure what to do. My mind was racing. I thought maybe I had the wrong person, but then he said my name. I sat down across from him, still trying to process it. The person sitting in front of me wasn't the man I'd been talking to for weeks. Everything about him was different. His voice sounded smaller in person. His posture slouched. His hands fidgeted constantly. He didn't even try to pretend for long. He looked down at his coffee and said he knew he'd messed up. He said he didn't expect me to stay, but he wanted to explain. I just listened, too stunned to even react. He said the pictures on his profile weren't him. They were of an old friend from years ago. He said he had built a fake version of himself around that friend's life. The trips, the hiking, the confidence, the stories, they were all borrowed. He said he made the account during a time when he felt invisible. He said women ignored him, that no one ever noticed him for who he really was. He wanted to know what it felt like to be desired, to have people actually interested in him. He said using those pictures gave him that, at least for a while. It was strange hearing him talk. He didn't sound cruel or manipulative, just broken, like he genuinely hated himself. He said the fake version of him was everything he wanted to be but couldn't. He used to scroll through dating apps for hours, trying to match with people, but no one ever replied. Then one day he decided to use his friend's pictures as a test, just to see if people would respond differently. They did, and from there, he couldn't stop. He said the attention became addictive. People messaged him constantly, calling him handsome, interesting, adventurous. He liked the feeling of being wanted, even if it was built on lies. He said he'd always planned to confess eventually, but would back out every time. When he met me, he said it got harder to keep pretending. He said I was the first person who made him feel guilty about lying, because I seemed to care about who he was, not just who he pretended to be. He said that's why he finally wanted to meet, tell me the truth. But the truth didn't make it any better. I just sat there, feeling uncomfortable, realizing that the version of him I fell for didn't exist. Every message, every story, every compliment, it all came from a fantasy version he built to hide the real one. He said his real name wasn't even Adam. He used a fake name because he didn't want people finding the real him online. He said his real life was boring. He worked a regular office job, lived alone, and barely had friends. He said the only time he felt alive was when he was pretending to be someone else. The worst part was that I could see how much he believed in that version of himself. He talked about it like it wasn't just a lie, but an identity he wished he could actually live as. The fake Adam was confident and loved. The real man in front of me looked like he'd been hiding from the world for years. After a while, I told him I needed to leave. He didn't argue. He just nodded and said he understood. As I walked out, he said he was sorry and that he hoped one day he'd be brave enough to show his real face to someone. I didn't look back. Later that night, he sent me one last message. It said, I deleted everything. I can't keep pretending. I never replied, and I never checked to see if he was telling the truth. Sometimes I still wonder what made him start pretending in the first place. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was jealousy. Or maybe he just got lost in the version of himself he created and didn't know how to come back from it. Either way, the Adam I fell for never existed. He was just a story told by someone who didn't like who they saw in the mirror. It started with a match that felt too good to be true. Her name was Lily, and her profile looked perfect. Every picture was the kind that made you stop scrolling. Soft lighting, perfect smile, clean background, and that kind of look that seemed natural but also just right. Her bio was simple but caught my attention. She said she liked coffee dates, road trips, and people who could make her laugh. Nothing about it seemed fake or forced. We started messaging that same night, and I remember thinking how easy it was to talk to her. She had that mix of confidence and sweetness that made me feel comfortable. Her replies weren't just one-word answers either. She told stories, asked questions, and actually seemed interested. After a few days, we moved to texting, then to phone calls. Every night we'd talk until one of us fell asleep. It became part of my routine. She said she lived about an hour away, worked in marketing, and loved photography. She'd send photos of her day, her coffee, her dog, random sunsets from her window. Her pictures looked almost cinematic, like everything in her world was effortlessly beautiful. I didn't even think to question it because she seemed so normal otherwise. A few weeks in, I started to really like her. We talked about everything, our families, jobs, goals, even dumb childhood stories. She made me feel like I'd finally found someone who understood me. She said she felt the same. She'd joke about how we were going to be one of those couples that met online but actually made it work. I believed her. After 2 months, we decided to meet. She suggested a quiet cafe in our town, and I agreed. I remember that morning so clearly. I was nervous but happy. I even left early because I didn't want to be late. On the drive there, I kept replaying her voice in my head and imagining how it'd feel to finally see her in person. When I got to the cafe, I texted her to let her know I'd arrived. She said she was already there, sitting inside near the window. I walked in and looked around, but I didn't see anyone who looked like her pictures. I thought maybe she was running late or sitting outside. Then I noticed someone wave. It was her. Or at least, it was supposed to be her. She looked nothing like her photos. Not a little different, not even close. Her hair was a different color, her face shape was different, and she looked at least 10 years older than the person I thought I had been talking to. She was heavier, shorter, and her whole presence was different. I froze, not out of rudeness, but because my brain was trying to catch up. She stood up and smiled, but even her smile didn't look the same. She could tell I was shocked, and before I could even say anything, she said she knew she looked different. She said she'd been scared to tell me the truth. We sat down, and she started explaining. She told me she had edited every single photo she'd ever sent. She said she'd been using the same pictures for years, but kept updating them with filters in Photoshop. She said she'd learned how to make herself look younger, slimmer, and more put together. She even admitted to removing wrinkles and changing her jawline in some pictures. She said it wasn't meant to be malicious, it was how she coped with her insecurities. I didn't even know how to respond. I just listened as she kept talking. She said she started doing it after a breakup years ago because she felt like no one wanted her anymore. At first, it was just small edits, like brightening her skin or smoothing her hair. Then it became full-blown photo manipulation. She said people started giving her attention again, complimenting her, messaging her, and she got addicted to it. She admitted that she'd been doing this for a long time, not just with me, but with dozens of people. She said she'd made different profiles on different apps, all using her real name but her edited face. Some people never found out, while others confronted her when they met in person. She said some yelled at her, some just walked away. She said every time it happened, she promised herself she'd stop, but she never did. It was strange sitting across from her. I could see the guilt in her face, but also a kind of sadness that made her look empty. She said she knew it wasn't right, but it was the only thing that made her feel good about herself. She said in real life she felt invisible, like no one ever looked at her twice. Online, she could be whoever she wanted. At one point, she even laughed nervously and said it was like living in two different worlds, one real and one perfect. She said the online version of herself got love, compliments, attention, all the things she didn't get offline. It wasn't about lying to hurt people, she said. It was about escaping her own reflection. I sat there listening, not sure whether to feel angry or sorry for her. It was like hearing someone confess an addiction, except this one wasn't drugs or alcohol. It was fake perfection. She said the photos weren't just about beauty, they were her armor. Every edit made her feel further away from the person she hated being. We talked for maybe an hour before I left. She didn't try to stop me. She just said she understood if I never wanted to talk to her again. As I walked out, I looked back once, and she was staring at her phone, probably scrolling through the same pictures that started it all. That night, she sent me a long message apologizing. She said she didn't expect me to forgive her, but she wanted me to know that the person I talked to was still her, even if the face wasn't. She said she wished she could have been brave enough to show her real self from the start. I didn't reply. I couldn't. A few weeks later, her account was gone, deleted. But every now and then, I'd see another profile pop up that looked suspiciously like her edits, same style, same angles, same perfect skin. Maybe it was her again. Maybe it was someone else doing the same thing. What stuck with me wasn't just that she lied. It was how far someone could go to escape who they really are. She built a world where she was loved for someone she wasn't, and once she stepped out of it, she couldn't survive without it. Lily wasn't real, not the way she wanted to be, but the pain behind her lies was.